American officials are heading to Asia tomorrow for the Biden administration's first diplomatic trip abroad, a further sign of the commitment of US foreign policy towards Asia. The Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, and Defence Secretary Lloyd Austin will meet Japanese and South Korean officials as the US seeks to shore up partnerships in the region. The talks follow Saturday's meeting of what was known as the Quad. American officials will conclude the trip with talks with senior Chinese officials in Alaska. Joining us now is political analyst and professor at Curtin University, Joe Siracusa. Joe, good morning to you. So what do you think is going to be the priority in these discussions, and what sort of a say will I guess, North Korea come up with?
Oh, good morning, Pete. Look, North Korea is still the main game. A couple of years ago, the Council of Foreign Affairs indicated that North Korea's nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles was the #1 problem in the world. For a couple of years, it went off the radar. Now it's #1 again, and everybody knows it. And that's why the Biden people are going to go see the Japanese and the South Koreans and see what they can do about it. They're going to try to keep the Chinese on side. They need the Chinese assistance here. And of course, this is the problem. You need the Chinese for COVID. You need the Chinese for the North Koreans and a number of climate change and other things. And at the same time, the Quad made it very clear that four democracies had one thing in common, and that was the common enemy there was China, though the issues were different in each country. So it's a great balancing act. So it's not enough for Biden just to be back in the game. It's to see how he can balance these things. And the other thing, Pete, too, is that Biden's going to do something that Trump really wasn't concerned about overly for 4 years, and that is pushing the human rights issue. Each one of these countries, everybody deals with, has a human rights problem, whether it's George Floyd or something else. And if you're going to push the human rights issue with the Chinese, particularly the Uyghurs and Hong Kong and Taiwan, then you're not going to get much done. So, and the other thing, too, is that the Democrats don't have a big track record with solving many of these problems. You recall a number of years ago, that President Obama was going to make the big pivot to Asia. Well, that didn't happen. So they're going to try to do it again. And so the Asia theater is the #1 theater right now, and everybody's in play. And I just don't know if there is enough patience or there is enough agreement on the Washington side. Washington's torn between realism and idealism. That is, national interest versus pushing the issues, the human rights issues. So you got to put one on the back burner if you want to get going with the other one. And so this could lead to a stalemate. On the other hand, there's reports coming out of North Korea that the North Korean leader's health is in question. We all know that. We can see that he definitely has gout, probably diabetes, and the rest of it. And so if there's a power vacuum there, what happens next? And of course, North Korea has nuclear weapons, enough to light up the Korean peninsula.
Yeah, and China's not going to like that too, by the way, is it, Joe?
Well, China doesn't want North Korea out of control. And, they made it very clear to Admiral Harris a couple of years ago, you can do what you want to North Korea as long as they fire first. And so, but China doesn't want Americans or Japanese or anyone else up against their borders. We've done that in September 1950. And the Chinese make it very clear they'd be at war with the world. So the Chinese have got their own balancing act right now. But it's a very dangerous time in foreign policy. It's not enough to be back. You have to have a plan. And of course, you have to have a number of people who are wise enough to implement it. I hate to say this in my generation, but it would be nice to have a Henry Kissinger around, somebody who is a great negotiator and diplomat. But I don't see that among the Democratic ranks.
Okay.